Hello, this is Lynn Silver, and sorry it's a bit late. It's just I have been doing chores a lot. I was busy with chores, so. Also, this is What If Deku was in the SCPAU of the Dream Smp. Part... I don't know. Whatever. Okay. So last time, I'm pretty sure we were like... Wait, let me go back. Oh, so we were dropping Tommy off at the foundation like a kid going to his first day of daycare. Okay, let's continue. By the way, this is in third person / narrator POV, so there's no I, you know? Okay. Let's get started. The guard was stunned and baffled at Izuku's attitude, which he will admit was being sort of rude, but he hated how SCPs weren't treated as humans, but just monsters, no matter how many good deeds they have done, no matter if they honestly have no ill intentions. They are all treated as if they're living ticking time bombs that will go off at any time. It just irritates Izuku. Izuku has made friends with almost all of the SCPs he has met, has enjoyed his time with them, and even becoming family. But he knows he might have to leave soon. Izuku went to his office to just relax with some coffee for an hour before a knock on his door, which was probably his schedule. He got up from his desk and went to pick it up. Izuku takes it, sits back down on his desk, and reads his schedule. But the only thing is that he got from his sleepy state was SCHL4TT, SCP-B4DB0YH4L0, and SCP-SKEPPY. To his surprise, it didn't have Dream, which he was prepared to groan, but was actually happy that he didn't have to go, but that wouldn't mean the other ones would be easy. Izuku sighed and got up from his seat and went out of his office and get started with his schedule. He made it to SCHL4TT containment and quickly looked at their information. SCP-SCHL4TT files. SCP is a 6'3" of American descent and has dark brown hair, dark brown eyes, with a bit of red, to say the least. He has goat horns on the side of his head. He is able to make spider legs on his back or make multiple arms, whichever he decides, but he usually uses them in battle or to help him do multiple things at the same time. He demands alcohol, and if not given to him, he will make the staff's lives living hell. James said no. God, just give him his alcohol. I can't handle his facts about the horse sex case. Oh, shit. He has broken the minds of 10 staff, like literally, and they have become brain dead and unable to even move properly. But those who don't have vivid images of explanations of disturbing content, SCP-Q4CK1TY has a burning hatred for SCP-SCHL4TT, and SCP-SCHL4TT explains that he and that SCP have been married, but he left the wedding and he hasn't forgiven him since, and kind of just hate him. But they have their moments of laughs where he doesn't want to rip his third out, but there will be some malice towards him. Izuku recognized the SCP they were talking about. It was Quackity. He enters the containment and looks around to see a typical white room, but it kind of looks like a normal room, except there were cobwebs here and there. There was a man with horns who sat on his bed with a wicked smile, who was probably SCP. Okay, making sure this is off. Okay, which was probably SCP-HL4TT. He has a cigar in his mouth, making very uncomfortable eye contact with Izuku, and then Izuku says, "Hello, SCHL4TT. I'm going to be visiting you for the next few hours." He then says, "Why, hello there. I've heard a lot about you, boy." Izuku was unnerved by the second this man started speaking, and honestly, he's not sure how to feel. SCHL4TT then says, "Oh, and don't call me by that random letters, by some random letters. Call me Schlatt." Did he just make a ram pun? Izuku wasn't sure if he wanted to punch the man or laugh at the joke, but Izuku does give a slight chuckle, and Izuku says, "Well, Schlatt, it's nice to meet you, so, what do you do for fun?" Schlatt then says, "Likewise. Well, I usually would disturb the guards with disturbing facts. But other than that and drinking, I play video games." Izuku's ears perk up when he heard video games and says, "Well, want to play some games to pass the time?" Schlatt smiles and says, "Hell yeah!" Schlatt then leads Izuku to the video games set up on the floor, which had pillows. Before they sat down, Schlatt looks at Izuku and says, "By the way, are you American?" Izuku then says, No, I'm Japanese." Schlatt then says, "Okay, at least you're not British." Schlatt had a serious time during the whole conversation that threw Izuku off, but somewhat ignored it. And Izuku sat down, grabbed the controller, and selected a game. And Schlatt selected a game called Mario Kart. Let's just say there was a lot of screaming, profanity, and destruction of his room. 4 words: Schlatt's a sore loser. Izuku, after calming Schlatt down, and him realizing he actually enjoys Izuku's company, he gives Izuku a block of sand. Doesn't know what to do, but appreciates it and puts it in his office before he goes to the next SCP. Izuku then goes to the other SCP, SCP-SKEPPY, and makes it to their containment, and then reads, but before they go in, he goes in, he reads their file. SCP-3PPY files. They is a 4-7 male and 2-2 male of American Canadian descent and has black hair and dark cyan blue eyes. Oh shit. Okay, nothing broke. His powers vary from different forms. His human-like form is what we describe above. His golem-like form is different. He is shorter, is the same as a human, except he has shards of diamond in his skin. And the other form, which is a small golem creature, he is shorter and he's made of pure diamonds and has an obsidian obsession with shiny things such as jewels and jewelry and gems. He has an affinity with profanity, but is a bit less than SCP-0MMY1NN1T, but still quite a lot. He has a few who can calm him down, which is SCP-B4DB0YH4L0 when in a rage state, SPSK3PPY at least has one piece of gold or jewelry on him at all times, due to his species having guard treasure for generations, so he had to have something to show what he was supposed to do and to honor his species. But that is what he has told the Foundation. But of where they came from and where they originated was declined and accompanied by screaming and whining similar to a child. And SCP-B4DB0YH4A0 was needed to come down with the promise of sand. Side note, why does he want sand? Does it symbolize something? And where the hell does SCP-B4DB0YH4L0 get the sand? Izuku was a bit confused, but decided that this SCP seemed friendly enough. So he goes in and sees no one inside. He looks around the room, but not leaving his spot. The containment was made of stone, or maybe that was just the inside, and kind of dark, and the only light being from a window on the ceiling that made a sort of stage light on a golden bowl that had jewels, jewelry, and gems, and sand at the bottom. It was an interesting room, to say the least. And then he hears something more like sand and notices the sand in the bowl moving. Izuku stepped back to see a blue object rise from the sand. He then heard someone say, "Why, hello, you must be my visitor." Izuku then looks at the bowl and sees a weird golem thing that looks to be of pure diamond. But it has a face, and it moves, and has emotions. They say again, "Hello, you there?" Then Izuku then snaps from his shock and says, sorry, hello, hello SCP-SK3PP1, PPY. They then say, "Oh, it's fine, I get that a lot, and just call me Skeppy." Izuku smiles and says, "Okay, Skeppy." Skeppy jumps off the bowl to the ground to show his very short stature. And he just knew deep down he was going to get questioned in a few seconds and then says, "Well, how long are you going to be here?" Izuku then sits down in front of Skeppy and says, "A few hours." An awkward silence could be heard from miles, making the tension thicken as something catches Skeppy's eye. Are you wearing earrings?" Skeppy said, making the tension a bit lighter, as Izuku says, "Yes, they're one of my favorites, and they're emerald." Skeppy's eyes looked like they were completely black by how dilated his pupils were. Okay, I just needed to check something, sorry. By how dilated his pupils, and says, "Could I see them up close?" Izuku was a bit hesitant to give Skeppy, and says, but then Skeppy then says, "Okay, how about one? Is one earring fine?" Izuku thought about it for a moment before giving in and taking off one of his earrings and giving it to Skeppy. Skeppy was fascinated by it and studying it like his life depended on it. Izuku found it kind of funny and smiled at Skeppy's childlike curiosity. Wasn't going to treat him like a child. That would be kind of rude and wrong. so he just watched Skeppy. Skeppy's continued his study. As Skeppy continued his study of the earring, Skeppy then calmed down and says, "Well, let me give this back to you. Sorry for being so long. I just wanted... Well, just looking at it. Sorry." Izuku smiles and says, "No problem. How about this? You can have my earring, and I get one of the jewels from the bowl over there. Fair deal?" Skeppy's eyes dilated in joy and says, "Deal!" Izuku laughs at his enthusiasm and gets up and Skeppy climbs the pillar that held the bowl. And Izuku gets up to his feet, but before he could look any closer, Skeppy says, "Okay, you can have anything except these. These are off limits." Skeppy held ruby and black jewels and jewelry in his hands, and Izuku says, "Okay, that sounds fair." Izuku then looks in the bowl and sees a blue diamond necklace that was similar to Skeppy's skin. And Izuku picked that one up and says, "I'll take this one, since it looks like you." Skeppy was a bit taken aback. That was the nicest thing someone has ever said to him who wasn't Halo. That made Skeppy smile, and he says, "And now your earring is one of my treasures." Izuku smiles as he hears the comms say it's time to go. Skeppy and Izuku say their goodbyes, and he left. Izuku puts on the necklace and smiled, as he thought as the small golem was man who was very kind to him. He then went to the next SCP, which wasn't far apart from Skeppy's, and looked at their file to read about them. SCP-B4-DB0YH41L0 Files. SCP is a 9/7 male of American descent, and he has two forms, where one, when he is 9/7 in height, and the other where he's more human, where he is 6'11". The first one is his non-human form. He has black skin, black hair, has black horns that are about 7 inches long, and a gold halo that floats above his head. His fingers have retractable claws. I couldn't pronounce that for a second. He has wings and can either be dragon-like or feathered-like, and can choose. His eyes are completely white. His human-like form has brown hair with light green eyes, but he will usually be in his unhuman form. He has a disliking to profanity and will repeatedly yell, "Language!" But when he is threatened, or when someone would throw profanities, he would grow to his largest size and would throw the one throwing the profanities and throwing knives at them, or swipes his claw at them. Izuku liked the fact that the SCP was such a good person or thing. The language bit made him smile and wonder who would they be like? How would they be like? What would they look like in person? Would they like him? Should he tell them about Skeppy, since they are friends? Izuku smiles and walks into the containment room. Okay, that is the end. Sorry if it's a bit short. And have a good day, night, afternoon, or whatever time zone. Bye, guys.